This podcast contains some strong language and some stories involving violence. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Warfighters United, where veterans' voices are heard and transitional resources and programs provided. This podcast is brought to you by the VFW, a service organization that provides our service members and veterans resources and representation throughout the nation. They also provide the community support and camaraderie we all miss being in the military. Join the VFW today and make a difference. Today in studio, I have a good friend of mine, Shane Houghton. He's a Vietnam veteran. He is a past district post commander, or district commander, 1 Allstate, and a post commander of 12082. Shane, welcome to Warfighters United.
Well, thank you, Eric. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about a lot of things, but let's start at your military career. What was it like being drafted, and what year was that?
I got drafted in 1971, so I got it near the end of the Vietnam conflict. But in 1971, I got called down to do my early 71. I got called down to do my physical and did that with a whole bunch of guys and come back. And apparently I did pretty good because it wasn't long, and they drafted me into the service and had to go report, and that was a culture shock.
Yeah, coming from, were you out of Ionia? Or?
Yeah, out of Ionia, yeah.
Yeah, coming from Ionia, just realizing that you're going to the Republic of Vietnam could definitely be a culture shock. And you had two brothers that served before you as well, right?
Yeah, I had two brothers and Marines over there before me.
Yeah? Yep. And so you kind of knew what was going on as you were about getting ready to go over.
Actually, they didn't talk about it a whole lot, and they were still in when I got drafted, so they didn't get a chance to come back and really talk to me much about it. So I figured I was going over there. I watched the draft numbers when I was being drafted, and I know I had low numbers, so I knew I was going to get a letter from the government saying greetings.
And what was your military occupational specialty while you're in the Army?
I was a 11 Bravo, which is infantry.
Infantry. So yeah. Where was your first place in Vietnam that they sent you to?
Well, I came in country at Cam Ranh Bay, and then I went to Chu Lai. And there was a cyclone that kind of went through there and kind of messed up there, and I ended up with Da Nang. And that's where I based out of for the most of the time.
And so were you just running patrols and missions throughout Da Nang, or?
No, we hopped on helicopters and flew out many, many different places, and I don't even know all the names of some of the fire places or fire bases that we served in. But most of the time just down in the jungle, patrolling, search and destroy, taking the helicopters in and landing, and they'd pick us up in a week or two and resupply for a few days and then fly back out to the field. I did that so many times I ended up getting the Air Medal.
The Air Medal?
Yeah.
Well, what is the Air Medal? Air
Medal is just something I got for so many flights over hostile territory.
Wow.
So, and one of the funny things about that, I don't know if it was funny. It wasn't funny to me then, but, for the new people, the first time flying out the field, we're on these about 5, 6, or 7, I don't forget how many helicopters out there. And by the way, when you sit in these helicopters, you get on and your feet are hanging out the door. You're not strapped in, right? So you're flying up in the air, 1,000, 2,000, I don't know how many thousands of feet. And they're even banking. It's just kind of centrifugal force keeping it in. So, that was an experience all on its own. But what they don't tell the new guys, and I didn't after this either, the first time you go out there and coming up, approaching the landing site, just as you're getting ready to touch down, all hell breaks loose. All the M60 machine guns on both sides that start cutting loose and prepping the area. There's rockets going off and boom, 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 like it's the whole shit the first time you're out there, getting right in the crap. So you're jumping off the helicopter when it gets close enough, and you're crouching down like that, and pretty soon everybody's just walking around, but scared the living crap out of you at the time.
I bet that would.
Anybody, so the first time out there, you think, oh, I'm in it already.
like you haven't even been there a week, and next thing you know, they're cutting everything down.
Oh, yeah.
And so what were the people like in Vietnam?
Well, the people that, the individual people, the ones that we talk to, friends by day, I don't know if you could trust them at night. I'm sure most of them are okay, but you never really knew.
So when you guys went into villages and everything, doing search missions to find out where the NVA was, what was that like? I mean, that's got to be a whole different lifestyle ballgame change for, coming from America and then going to some village out in the middle of nowhere
Well, yeah, even at the city of Da Nang, and you go up and down the city of Da Nang, the way that people lived, I mean, I'm sure it's a lot different now, but it was so far behind us, culturally wise. And that's the way most of the people were over there, and, it must have been, a culture shock for them too, trying to deal with us.
Yeah, no, I mean, I kind of equivalent, like we would go into Iraq and we would have little villages. They didn't have power. Mm-hmm. Their houses were made out of mud homes. Mm-hmm. So every time it rained, they were fixing them.
Right.
And, they're walking miles with buckets of water just to have water at their place. And so I've got to imagine, even though it rained all the time in Vietnam, that you guys came into...
Certain times of the year, it rained all the time during the monsoons. There were periods you couldn't get dry for... a couple of 3 weeks at a time if you're out in the field. Now, as hard as you tried, you'd be wet.
So what was that like, just living in water for 3 weeks at a time?
It just, kind of misery, I guess. It's raining, all your stuff's wet, you're wet, your blankets are wet. You have these little, half tent things you try to stay dry, and it just didn't work very well. So, I was in different terrains, some of the jungles, some in the mountains. It was really a lot different than what you're used to.
So in the mountainsides, you guys had the terminology of tunnel rats. Were guys in your units doing that tunnel ratting through the system when they lived underground?
When we come up to where we suspected some underground stuff, where there was a couple guys that would have to go down there and tunnel rats, we didn't see that a whole lot. Most of the areas we patrolled was places where there wasn't supposed to be anybody, and if you find anybody or see anybody, you shoot and ask questions later, because you assume that they're the NVA or like that. So
did you just do the 1 year, or did you stay in after you got back from Vietnam?
No, because I was near the end. I did the 1 year over there, and then got a chance to come back, and so I came back when I did. When I went over there, I was combat infantry. The first full day in Vietnam, we were in Cam Ranh Bay, and I got assigned duty of burning crap. And so you go out, and there's all these like outhouses, and under the outhouses, half 55-pound barrels of crap. So you'd have to hook them on, pull them out, fix it with diesel fuel, and burn that, and just keep doing that over and over until that was all gone. That was a terrible day.
Believe it or not, when we took over Uday's palace in the ancient ruins of Babylon, we made bathrooms. There's 4 crappers in a row, mm-hmm. Big old barrels full of mm-hmm. diesel, mm-hmm. and they cut diagonal squares out. And that was what we used, and we had to do the same thing.
Yeah,
so
pull them out, and
even though
somebody
it's
stir them up and burn
50
them.
years later,
oh yeah,
that is still, when you take over a territory, that is still the number one way that the military takes care of that. And so you're not the only one.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So you get back from Vietnam. What was that like coming back to America?
Well, it's like I've heard you talk to other Vietnam veterans. The first thing they ask you to do is, take off your uniform, get in your skivvies, and then coming back. And, it was just so good to be back in America. I remember leaving Saigon on the plane coming back. As we were rolling down the runway, they start blaring through the intercom on the plane, "We got to get out of this place." And everybody just went. That song, "You Got to Get Out of This
mm-hmm.
Place," that song, I mean, everybody just erupted in happiness and, yay, come out there. And so we get back to the States, and we just kind of split up, and everybody just went home. I didn't get no steak dinner or anything else, no thank you, no nothing. But I also didn't run into anybody who, didn't like us or spit on us or stuff like that. Like I said, we got in our civvy uniforms and went home.
Yeah, that was a big issue back then.
Yeah, it was.
A lot of Americans weren't treating our veterans like they should.
That's right. And a lot of them still angry at this point. I think we all still have a little bit of anger about that. I'm just so glad that it's changed at this point, and so that veterans never have to go through that again.
Well, and that's all because of our Vietnam veterans standing up to make sure that would never, ever, ever happen again to any service member coming back. And, because of you guys standing on that wall and standing on that line, that's the reason why our military has so much respect today. So, I mean, you should give yourself a pat on the back for that. Every Vietnam veteran should.
Well, I'm just so glad that the culture has changed and everybody appreciates it now. So a lot of times I see people and they thank me for my service, or I see another Vietnam veteran saying, "Hey, welcome home, buddy," like that. And a couple of unique things happened to me, and actually in the last few weeks at Menards. I was at Menards and I was buying, $50 worth of stuff, and the guy behind me, he a Vietnam vet, right? He paid for my stuff. He wouldn't hear anything of not paying for it. He said, "I'm not listening. No, I'm going to buy this stuff." And then that happened to me again a couple of weeks later at Menards, and that's never happened. But, I really appreciate it. I mean, they don't have to do that, but they did that. And that was, I really appreciated them doing that.
Those simple acts of kindness really make a difference.
It does.
And whether they realize that they're doing it or not, the person on the other end of that definitely makes them feel like people care.
Yep, absolutely it did. So anyway, I got back from Vietnam. I spent my 30 days home, and I got reported at Fort Riley, Kansas. So I spent, 6 months over there or so like that before I got out of the service. But one of the interesting things that happened to me there is President Truman was getting sick, and he's getting ready to die. And, when the president gets ready to die, they get ready to do these formal funerals and stuff, like state funerals and stuff. Well, part of that is each branch of the service has to provide an honor guard platoon to attend the funeral. And I was one of those honor guard platoons. We'd train. And so at a state funeral, I was part of the honor guard platoon for that. And so that was pretty interesting.
So what was that like, being the honor guard platoon for President Truman's funeral?
Well, it was kind of an amazing thing to see all the dignitaries and stuff like that, and all the other branches of the service, and their honor guard platoons marching and doing all the things that they're doing. It was quite an experience. It's something I'm proud to have, kind of my claim to fame type thing. And years later, here, I don't know, about 10 years ago, I went down to Truman's, his library. And they're getting ready to do a tour, and I happened to mention that, hey, I was part of his honor guard at his funeral, and so they announced it to everybody at the tour and stuff like that. And it was pretty interesting. Yeah,
and so you get out of the service. What did you do after that?
Well, after service, I guess I didn't do anything for a couple of months. Before I got drafted, I worked at Oldsmobile, right? And so when you get back, you're supposed to be able to get your job back. But being a young kid just out of the service, I didn't respond quick enough to get that job back. But I ended up getting a good job at Brown Corporation in Ionia, and I spent most of my career there.
So when did you decide to join the VFW?
Actually, probably about 1974. I got out in 73, and in 1974, a past state commander come knocking on my door and asked me if I wanted to join the service. So I did join the service, maintained that membership, though, because of everything else I had going on with my career, my kids, stuff like that. And I really didn't understand what the VFW really was about back then, so I wasn't really active. And I didn't really get that active until about 2009 when they restarted up the Ionia Post. And boy, then I got active.
Yeah, and you're doing a lot of things when it comes to the VFW. I know Ionia Post is, when they have a veteran in distress, they're always willing to help take care of them. And
we do a lot to help veterans in the area. If they have problems with paying some bills or something like that. I'm also Soldier Sailors Relief Commissioner for Ionia County, and so that's when a veteran or somebody, a widow of a veteran or whatever, gets in some trouble and needs some financial help or something like, they come and we can see what we can do to help them. We've been able to help a lot of different veterans doing that stuff. So, and
you guys are also very active in the high schools and the elementary schools
and teaching drug etiquette or anything like that, and just kind of going there and giving talks. We also adopt family at Thanksgiving and make sure they get well fed at Thanksgiving. A number of families, 8 to 10 Thanksgiving and 10 to almost 15 every year for Christmas. We make sure they got all the food for Christmas, and also they get $200 in gift cards to shop, so shop with a vet. So we do a lot of give back. We also do a lot of funerals in the community for make sure they have proper military honors.
Right, and during Memorial Day, you guys go out to the cemeteries, make sure every veteran gets a flag on their burials?
Yeah, we actually we provide about 1,200 flags for the local cemeteries around Ionia. And every flag also has a veteran's grave marker. And so we've raised that money to provide that.
Wow.
So we're proud to do that.
Yeah, and so you also do a lot with mental health. You have what's called the Wall of Tears,
yes,
which you travel around with.
Yes, yes, I do. And Wall of Tears is something that I come up with the idea about, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, I guess I came up with the ideas. And the reason how I got into that idea is after I was district commander, then I wanted to run for a position at the Department of Michigan. So I went campaigning around all the different districts. And I think I was in the 10th district. And the discussion came up about the Vietnam Veterans Traveling Wall. And then the discussion came up, and I think I brought it up. I said, it's too bad. We do need to honor all those that died during Vietnam and have all those names on there. It's great they have that information. But what about all the ones that came back and couldn't readjust and committed suicide? We don't have anything for them. How do you compile all that data? Who committed suicide after Vietnam for whatever reason? And, there not being anything like that, it just got me thinking about, is there anything that we can do to help prevent suicide, stuff like that, and maybe come up with some information to provide something for them. So I come up with the Suicide Wall of Tears, teach everybody about the reality of suicide. And this wall consists of 4 panels. They're 6 feet high, 8 feet long, so it's 32 feet long all in all. And the first panel kind of depicts the pain of anguish of those left behind somebody's suicide. And what it basically is a bunch of people standing over a veteran's grave or somebody that committed suicide, and how they're second-guessing themselves. Thinking, I should have seen this coming, I let them down, my heart breaks for you, I wish that I could help prevent that. And at the bottom of it shows a veteran's grave marker, and it says rest in peace. And if that veteran that committed suicide, or it doesn't really have to be a veteran, but anybody who commits suicide could see the effect that his suicide had on the people he left behind, that maybe he'd have a second thought about that. The second panel deals with, it's okay to ask for help. It's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. You want to fight for your life, and your life can and will get better. The third panel deals with famous people who committed suicide or attempted suicide and went on became famous later. And you'd be amazed who those people are, like Elton John, Martin Luther King, people like that, Princess Diana, people like that who attempted suicide when I became very famous later. It just shows that in their darkest hours, they thought their life was over, and they was able to find a reason to live and actually contributed back to the society. And I'm sure there's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of cases like that, if not millions, that life can and will get better. You just need to hang on there and find a reason to live again. And the fourth panel is again, our plea that they understand that you have a reason, that you are loved, that things can and will get better.
And you have a personal connection with this, yes, because you've had people in your family that have unfortunately did things to take their own lives as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Suicide prevention is near and dear to my heart. I had a brother commit suicide after Vietnam. As I said, I had 2 brothers in Vietnam before me. They were both Marines. Dallas didn't readjust right, and sometime later he ended up committing suicide. People who commit suicide after service need to be considered as casualties of war, just like the ones that are on the wall. The only problem is it's so hard to really nail down and all the statistics on that to do that with. But we need to do everything we can for suicide awareness and prevention.
Stand with those who served. Join your local Michigan VFW, where veterans find support, purpose, and community. Learn more at vfwmi.org. That's vfwmi.org.
Well, a lot of people don't realize, too, that there's a lot more reasoning to why that person wants to commit suicide. And so, like, you know, during your era, it was called shell shock. Ours, you know, I would guarantee a good portion of Vietnam vets have traumatic brain injury from the explosions that they were involved in. And when your brain isn't acting right, and those parts that control your emotional centers and everything else aren't acting right, it just makes that kind of idea easier or simpler, that life would be better off without them.
Right.
And unfortunately, the technology was not there in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, 2000. It wasn't until 2007 where traumatic brain injury actually made it on a level to be recognized. But I would bet a good portion of our Vietnam vets. So you guys are coming on your 50 year of the Vietnam War ending and 60 years from when it began this year.
Yeah.
And I know it was probably 5, 6 years ago, 10 years ago, that they said we lost over 54,000 people in Vietnam. We've lost the same amount because of suicide out of our Vietnam veterans, which I think that's a very low number. But statistically, what they were looking at, they said it took that long to reach the number of people who actually died overseas.
Right. And I'm sure that that number is still growing. So we have that, I think, throughout our military. But I think, it certainly helps with them realizing the effects of war can have on people. But, there's quite a list of reasons why people commit suicide. Mental illness is one of them, and that PTSD is part of that. Anxiety, depression, traumatic experiences, being bullied, sexual abuse, physical abuse, personality disorders, drug addictions, eating disorders. So there's lots of reasons, financial reasons, isolation, relationship problems. When I was in Vietnam, this is another thing. My first day out in the field, so they fly me out in the field that first day, and that first day I did deliver letters, when they do that. So we met up in my company, and this one guy in my company that had been there a while got a letter, it's a Dear John letter. He shot himself that night.
Oh, my gosh.
How terrible that is.
And I bet you that it happened more frequently than others would like to admit.
Absolutely. I remember I got one also, but I wasn't in Vietnam yet. I was in training yet. And I was just devastated. You can't go home. You can't fix it. You're stuck. And that's actually where I got started smoking, because we were out in the field, and in the C rations, there's a little 4-pack of cigarettes. I couldn't get drunk. So I started smoking cigarettes, and it took me almost 30 years to quit smoking. But
now, did they give you beer over in Vietnam? I always see on the movies that, the helicopters are dropping off cases of beer. The guys under the pause, or, when they have a night off, they got to do that? Or
resupply day. We're out in the field. They're in the jungle or wherever. We don't have any bunkers or anything like that. But so on resupply day, bring us our food and bring us some water, anything else we need like that. And every man got 2 beers, and they would drop off a big block of ice. Well, you might as well forget the ice, because that beer didn't last long. You don't know it was 100 degrees. We just drank the damn beer.
Yeah. So Marine Corps birthday, right after Fallujah, or right before Fallujah, November 10th, the week we got out, everybody got 2 beers and a shot.
Yeah.
And I tell you, for the guys who did not drink beer, they would sell it to the guys who did.
Oh, yeah.
And, man, they were making $20-$30 a beer. And the guys who were paying it for it were very happy to pay it, because the Iraqi liquor that we'd get that was moonshine or bootlegged did not taste very good.
Oh, yeah. Same thing in Vietnam. I bought a bottle of banana wine once. Oh, my God, that nasty stuff. I think it was kerosene or something. I couldn't drink it.
Oh, you couldn't?
Oh, no, it was so nasty. I think they're trying to poison me.
And so you do the Wall of Tears. Where do you take that wall to?
Well, that's available. It's a moving Wall of Tears. It's available to go any place. I've been lucky enough to be able to take it to the Department of Mission Convention, VFW. I'm also taking it to a Cootie Grand Convention for the state of Michigan.
I'll explain.
Go ahead.
Explain what the Cooties are.
The Cooties is a auxiliary of the Veterans of Foreign Wars, military order of the Cooties. We call ourselves the elite, and we deal more with working with veterans that are in hospitals and giving them what they need and giving them a little cheer and stuff like this. So that's what the Cooties are.
And there's a lot of veterans that are in hospitals, especially, the last of the World War II.
Right.
The Vietnam veterans that are left.
You'd be surprised how many are in our veterans' homes and stuff like that. And we also work with the National Home for Children. We do Cedar Point trips, make sure all the children there, get to go to Cedar Point. And we also do Cootie Christmas for the children down there to make sure all the kiddies have food, big party, presents and stuff like that. We bring Santa Claus in.
And so you're talking the VFW National Home in Eaton Rapids.
Right.
And so they have 43 houses with 43 families and kids.
Yep.
We're doing a huge event there August 16th with the Brothers After War.
Yeah, bringing my wall down there.
Which the Wall of Tears will be down there as well.
Yeah.
But those are the kids that you're talking about, the kids of the families that are at the VFW National Home.
Right. And we do that every year, and it's a big event, and we have Cooties coming in from all over the nation to help with that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of good stuff's going on out there at the VFW National Home.
It is. It's a great organization, and if you have never had the opportunity to be there, you need to go down there and see what's going on. You can get tours, all the homes and stuff like that. So
nice. So let's jump back a little bit. When you were a district commander, what was that like running 32 posts throughout Michigan? Well,
it certainly kept you hopping. So you want to work with those posts. If they have any problems, get together and put a team in there and go help them out. They have problems reporting, any problems with the financial needs, or any problems that they need. So we'd go around to all these posts and, go to the meetings, talk to the people. And it's a great opportunity for the comradeship and stuff like that, and see how all the other posts, what they do and stuff like that. So it was great seeing all that, but also being able to help them out.
So usually for an average veteran who gets out of the military, it takes a good 5 to 7 years for them to want to be a part of anything. And, always the question, what is in it for the veteran that joins up to the VFW?
Well, other than comradeship, being able to talk to other veterans who've been through things much like you have. Sometimes talking to a vet-to-vet talk can really help. Plus, gives you a better chance of getting all the resources and all the help that you can get.
I think a lot of veterans who are able to join the VFW should.
Absolutely.
Just because it's less than 0.5% of America. Actually, it's even lower than 0.5% serve overseas in combat zones, fighting for our country and our freedoms. What does freedom mean to you, Shane?
Well, freedom is, our freedom of choice, what we can do, our rights to do that. We can do what we want and travel where we want, and our religion for what we want. So that's very important. It's important to fight for.
And many, many people have laid their lives for that.
Many thousands have laid their life down for that. Yes, absolutely.
And so you have a final plea. What is that?
The final plea to people, and it's not necessarily just veterans, that it's to ask for help. So I just want to say it's okay to ask for help. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. You're fighting for a reason to live. If you commit suicide, you condemn your family and friends to a life of grief that would never go away, a lifetime of sorrow and self-doubt and self-blame that they should have seen your suicide coming. You should have been there. They should have been there for you to help you, and that somehow they had let you down and when you really needed them. There will forever be a hole in their heart for you. On average, every suicide leaves an estimate of 6 or more suicide survivors. These people who've lost someone who they care deeply about are left to struggle with grief for the rest of their lives. They are an increased risk of and think about and planning or attempting suicide. The world, your family, and your friends are not better off without you. They are better with you. You may not believe it now, but it's true. As proof, I offer you the list of people who attempted suicide and were later glad that they failed and went on to do remarkable things in life. And what do you do? World would be in if we had lost them. And that was that list that I was talking about earlier, about people who attempted suicide and very, very famous people. And there's thousands and thousands and probably millions more who attempted suicide and went on to find a reason for living and be happy, be loved, and loved again.
And so what are some of the hotlines? I know we have 988 as a huge hotline for...
Yeah, there are many hotlines for suicide prevention. I've got a list here someplace. I don't have it right here in front of me. Like you said, the Veterans Crisis Hotline, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, 1-800-273-8255. Just, all kinds of different hotlines to do that, and it's easily to find. That's one thing in my Wall of Tears. I have all this information where you can get help, and I have that list of famous people who attempted suicide and went on and became famous. So all kinds of information to help. Also have what we call the Lord a prayer for suicide prevention. I'd like to be able to say that right now. So we pray for those affected by hopelessness as well as people dealing with suicidal thoughts. We ask that you provide them with comfort and guidance and a placement for the support of the systems in their lives to let them know that they are important and that they matter and that they are not alone. We also pray you use us to be a support, a listening ear, and a comfort for those in pain, hopelessness, and alone. Move our feet, Lord, and help us not only to pray, but to take action. And thank you for the support and guidance you have put in our lives. And we ask that if you, or when the time comes and a wave of hopelessness or suicide thinking comes over one of us someday, that we'll find the capacity and the bravery to speak up and ask for help.
Keyword is ask for help.
Ask for help.
Right. So if you're a veteran out there, or you're a person or a civilian, and you're thinking about going down that road, you're going to have your good days and you're going to have your bad days. But if you ask for help, there'll be somebody that could help you pull out of that darkness, right?
Absolutely.
And, that seems to be happening all too often and has been for the last couple of decades, if not...
I think forever.
Forever.
And, it's more than just veterans, but in 1920, I got some statistics. In 2022, over 49,000 people died of suicide. That's a huge number.
And that was in 1922?
No, that was in 2022.
2022.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's one every 11 minutes. Also, the statistics show that 13.2 million seriously thought about suicide. 3.8 million actually made a plan for it. And 1.6 million attempted suicide. That's huge. And all that, 6,570 veterans died by suicide in 2024. So,
how many?
It says 6,570 in 2024.
Wow, if you divide that by 365, you're talking 5 a day? 6 a day?
Well, I think, no, that's better than, that's about 20 a day.
20 a day.
Yeah. So a lot of people attempt it. A lot of people succeed. 49,000 people succeeded in suicide. So we need to do all we can. This is serious. If this was a disease, it is a type of disease. Mental illness that takes you to this point where you think you need to commit suicide. They would be working on this so hard, and we're seeing this more and more what they are. So we need to work those numbers down.
Well, you know, I had the Grunt Style Life's one of the guys that does works for them. He was in here, and you know, Terry and I, we do the 22 push-ups a day.
Yep.
You know, during November.
Sure.
And this last year, he had said it came down to 17. And when I had him in, Derek in, he said the reason why it went down to 17 is because they pulled the active duty, they pulled the reserves, they pulled some of the people that 22 a day statistic was in there. Somehow over the last year or two, they pulled those out of the statistic. And when you take that amount of people and you take it out of that, it turned it down to 17.
That's so they can show progress. What's the point? There's still the 22 a day or more that are actually committing suicide.
Right.
And I don't think there's probably a way to really have a good number. It's probably 2 or 3 times that what the actual number is.
Right, because you're not including the guys that drive into a tree going 100 miles an hour.
Right.
That they call a car accident. You're not including the guys that, you know, they say OD'd because they took too much of their medication, and nobody wants to call it suicide.
Right. And the ones that have been out of the service for a little while and, you know, commit suicide, you know, it's hard to come up with those statistics. So you know, they don't really know. But, you know, and we need, you know, we're talking about veterans, but, you know, what about the 49,000 in America that committed suicide?
Yeah.
You know, a year. That's what the real number is.
49,000 a year in America.
Yep.
That's a pretty outstanding number.
That's a huge number. That's why this is so important. So my suicide wall prevention, teach everybody to realize suicide is for everybody. It's not just veterans. I started out just for veterans because of my brother committed suicide. It got me to think about it. And another dear friend that committed suicide later. Both Vietnam veterans.
Yeah, so if you're hurting out there, you know, look up these hotlines.
That's right.
Look up these sites to where you can actually call and get help immediately.
Right.
To make sure that you're not a part of that statistic.
Right. And if you know somebody that you're concerned that may be committed suicide, you know, talk to them about it. Make sure that they know that you're there for them. Don't be afraid to ask them directly. Are you thinking about hurting yourself? That's the right way to do it. Don't be afraid to break the subject. Don't be one of these, like myself, that I should have seen my brother, seen it coming. I didn't. I didn't ask. I feel like I let him down. Don't be one of those. Ask them directly. In most cases, they'll be honest with you. And if that's the case, then work with them to get the help. Let them know that you're there for them. Let them know that they are important, that they mean something. Their life is important, even if they don't think so. It will get better.
Do you feel like, because you feel that way, do you feel like that's kind of like the ethos of, you know, the suck it up mentality that we would all learn in the military about, you know, never show your weaknesses, never show your strengths, you know, always stonewall
it's certainly
and close off.
It's certainly got to be a part of it. It's hard to ask for help. It is hard, but sometimes when things are getting bad enough and you got no other choice and you got no place else to go, don't commit suicide. You can and will have a better life. Things can and will get better. It's in your darkest hours. It can and will get better. So you got to ask for that help. And don't let your friends down. They do love you. They do care about you. Don't condemn them to a lifetime of sorrow, heartache, because you're not there with them and they felt like you let them down. And that puts them at a greater risk of suicide themselves. They're 6 times more likely to commit suicide themselves if you commit suicide.
So like a chain reaction.
Like a chain reaction. That at best, it makes it worse. So find a reason to live. Get some help.
Right.
Lots of help out there.
So I know a lot of times they used to tell us, you know, instead of focusing on the negatives, you can find negatives all day long. But if you start focusing on the positives one by one, it might not be a lot at first, but as you keep going day to day, that will grow. And maybe some of the outlook of what you're doing. You know, a lot of people like drama, a lot of people like negatives, right? But focusing on some of the positives, that could also help as well.
I think positive thinking is one of the things that's going to help you most. And I came across something the other day, and I hope I can remember this to repeat it, but the quality of your thoughts, quality of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. You really think about that.
That's actually a pretty good saying. The quality of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts.
Yeah. I come across that the other day, and I wrote it down and said, I got to remember that. But I've always been a person who tried to exude a positive thoughts and positivity to people that talk to me. People ask me how I'm doing, and most of the time I say, I'm doing perfect. He said, what do you mean, perfect? I don't mean I'm perfect, but I'm doing perfect. Put my life in perspective for how bad it actually could be, and a lot of people have in the world. I have no right to complain. As bad as things sometimes can be. My life's perfect.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad. I know you've helped me a lot with understanding the VFW, how it works over the last few years.
I'm glad to help.
And, we got to, raise a lot of money to save the Civil War battle flag.
We did. We're still working on that and bring that conclusion here soon, I hope.
Hopefully. And, I'm going to have you back on, and we're going to specifically spend another 45 minutes or so talking about the Civil War battle flag from Ione County from the 21st Regiment. And I can't wait for that. But you have any saved rounds before we end this up, Shane?
No, I don't have anything more. I appreciate the opportunity to get down here and talk to you. I appreciate your service, what you're trying to do coming up in the VFW and helping veterans. And you're doing a lot of things to help veterans, and this program is one of them. So I'm really honored to be here. Thank you.
All right. Well, you can always find us on Warfighters United Podcast on Facebook. We also have a new website. Everything that we talk about will be on that website as www.warfightersunited.com. My name is Eric Calley, and I will see you next Wednesday.